All right. Good evening, everybody. It's Taylor and I tonight for a special Tuesday edition of the Phins Forecast show. So, there's been some things going on in the Dolphins world the past couple weeks. Well, the past week, really. We haven't gotten to talk about it yet. And Taylor and I wanted to jump on and kind of give our own clarifications, give our own explanations, and kind of get clarifications for ourselves as to what's going on, because it's actually been a low key, big news week for the Dolphins. So Taylor and I are going to get into all the news stories right after this. All right. Good evening, everybody. Taylor and I are with you tonight for a Tuesday edition of the Phins Forecast show. Lots of news to cover, lots of things to go over. It's probably not going to be one of those shows where we go, an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. But there's some things to cover. And Taylor and I wanted to jump on and cover them for you. So, Taylor, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I would say this is more of a late afternoon show.
Yeah.
I will also like to throw out there, this show does go on for about an hour and 30 minutes. Something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited to get into it, though. It's something to where we've talked about this, like, going into the offseason, doing some extra content. And this is like our first unofficial episode of the offseason.
Yeah, it wasn't planned or anything, but we were talking about some of the news we're going to be going over here today, and you brought up the idea of coming on and just kind of doing a show based on all this news, and it's like, you know what, there is a lot to cover. We should probably do that. And with that said, Taylor, I'm going to throw it over to you to introduce the first story for us.
Don't mind if I do. So yeah, we'll probably have a few more episodes like this throughout the off season. And they might be a bit random, and that's because we're just trying to figure out what type of content works for us and what type of content that you guys want to hear us talk about.
Yeah.
As always, too, leave a comment on this video on anything we're going to discuss here today. We'd love to hear from you. Speaking of which, you're right, we do have some Dolphin news to get into, and the first of which is Terron Armstead related. At the NFL Combine, Mike McDaniel said the team has to operate under the assumption that left tackle Terron Armstead will not be returning in 2025. Ian Rappaport later went on to report the following. Terron Armstead plans to take his contract down to minimum, I'm told, from the $28.6 million he was set to make. That allows the team to make all the necessary moves they want to make and allows Armstead, 33 years old, to be on the team until he makes his decision on his future. This move could save Miami around $13 million in cap space for 2025, roughly $26 million over 2025 and 2026, however. For reference, you can look at overthecap.com or go check out Kyle Crabb's Substack, Touchdown Miami, where he outlines the potential financial moves the Dolphins can make with Armstead. Now, I think this was the catalyst behind us doing this show here today.
Yeah, it was. We saw this, and our group text kind of exploded with the four of us.
Yeah, what a move here today. And I gotta say, like, I don't know the last time I've heard a player do. I don't want to say like take a pay cut, but like an aging player that's going to make this much money just be like, hey, I need more time. You know what? I'll take the minimum for now, so you guys can go and do whatever you need to do in free agency. Like this, I'm not saying it's the first time it's ever happened. I just cannot remember the last time it did happen.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you, Taylor. I don't remember it ever happening. I'm sure it has in the past, but for me, this is this kind of a first, and I don't know what the implications of this are other than giving the Dolphins cap relief. I don't know if this means Terron Armstead is considering coming back. I don't know if this means that he's definitely going to retire. I know Mike McDaniel has said, like you said, we're preparing for life without Terron Armstead. I just don't know, man. And that's what makes this move so intriguing to me.
Yeah, and I think another reason it does because we were sitting with about $5 million in cap space.
Yeah,
going in.
Yeah.
And this is yet another move that I don't think it doesn't put us like in the top end.
No.
But it's yet another move that's like, okay, it's not as bad as you once thought it was.
Right. It gives us some maneuverability here. It gives us gives us a little bit of breathing room to sign a couple of dudes, like you said. So I don't know. Let me ask you this though, Taylor. Like what do you think this means for first and foremost, what do you think this means for Terron Armstead in his future with the Miami Dolphins?
Honestly, I can't imagine him coming back.
Okay.
I really can't. I think he was – this is like his final year and he's going to retire. He's been a fantastic player for this team on the field. The problem has always been when he's on the field.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been a lot of the issues for a few players on this team, including our starting quarterback. But the thing with Armstead is even off the field, like he's shown exceptional leadership.
Oh, yeah.
For the team, great culture guy, all that stuff. And I think this move kind of shows like, yeah, he definitely is. It just reinforces that. And I think Josh put in our group chat, he was like, that is a Ring of Honor-esque move. And I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Like, that was a really cool move for him to do. Really good move, too, by the Dolphins to be like, yeah, you know what? Take more time. This move, like, nobody has to make any rash decisions right now.
Yeah.
So, great move all around. I hope he comes back, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Taylor. I definitely hope he comes back. I mean, we went over this in one of our shows, one of our previous shows, but according to Pro Football Focus, he was the third best tackle in the NFL last year. He still got it. Dude still plays
best season with us, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, man. He's still playing at a really high level. So of course I want him back. I want him to come back to play left tackle for us for as long as he can. If he gets hurt, of course, when he gets hurt, I should say, of course, take your time on the injury list, but be here as a player, as a mentor to Patrick Paul, let Patrick Paul kind of just bask under your tutelage for another season. Of course, I want Terron Armstead back. But like you, a move like this, I don't know that it happens unless Terron Armstead's like 85% leaning towards retirement, That's my issue here. Now, one thing that you and I discussed, Taylor, and this is something that I don't know that either of us know the answer to. So if you guys do know the answer to it, if you guys understand what's going to happen here, please let us know in the chat. What happens if Terron Armstead decides that he does want to come back to play? Do the Dolphins sign him to another deal? Do the Dolphins give him some money, post June 1st, some of that post June 1st money to come back and play for us? That's the one part that I'm not 100% certain of. So Taylor, I don't, I know we talked about this. Do you have any thoughts on this?
On the cap stuff specifically, if he comes back, not necessarily. Maybe they could, put some incentives in the contract as well. Josh is actually in our chat right now. Most likely he will play at whatever contract they agree to and then revisit it in the offseason past the season. Yeah, I think that's the most likely option if he comes back cap-wise. I just want to talk about on the field, though. Yeah. Because we went through over the last few weeks, which feels like a blur, Keith. I'm going to be dead honest with you. The last 5 to 6 episodes of this show have blended together for me. So I don't remember exactly when we got into this, but we were talking about, the grades and team needs, and we were talking about a backup swing tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if Armstead decides to come back, I know it'd be pricey, but you will have a very quality backup swing tackle and a future left tackle starter with Patrick Paul. So that position would be filled, and you'd basically be looking at it going, all right, we're set at tackle. Let's go in the interior offensive line. Let's fix the guards.
Yeah. Well, 100%. And, Patrick Paul started the last 2 games of the season for the Dolphins at right tackle. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say he played at a high level because he didn't. Patrick Paul is pretty much at this stage of he's pretty much a left tackle, and that's kind of it. He's a left tackle and nothing else, to me at least. He's not a guard. He's far too big to play guard.
Yeah. He's played both tackles, though.
There's my boy Juju in the background there. He's far too big to play guard. He's, but right tackle, I mean, he could be a swing tackle. I wouldn't mind seeing the Dolphins still bring in another guy who knows how to play right tackle. I wouldn't mind seeing the Dolphins re-sign Kendall Lamb. If he wants to come back to play, I wouldn't mind seeing them do that.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about the Dolphins offensive line, and everybody, rightfully so, criticizes it. But you do look at the tackle situation, and it's not a talent issue. It's always been an injury issue, whether that be Austin Jackson last season, when Austin Jackson the year prior was the Iron Man of the offensive line. Yeah. Whether that be Kendall Lamb or Terron Armstead. It's always been injury-wise because you talk about, players to bring back and who to get in free agency. Yeah, I have no issue with Armstead and Lamb both coming back. And the issue has always been, to me, the guards. The guards in the center in particular, and I think we do have somebody at center now with Aaron Brewer. But Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg, I don't mean to make this about them. Yeah. But they are so bad.
Yeah.
I cannot fathom them returning.
No, especially in a starting role, maybe as backups, but I feel like I'm not even open to that at this point. I just think I'm ready to just move on from both of them. But, as far as Terron Armstead's concerned, of course we want him back. I think you and I are in agreement on that, Taylor. And we want him back, and we, obviously Patrick Paul is going to be here. Austin Jackson's under contract still. Bringing another swing tackle if Terron Armstead comes back, we're set. We're good to go. And guard, that's a position we're going to address. I did see that Mike McDaniel said that it's time for them to full-throatedly go into rebuilding the guard position, whether that be through free agency or the draft. And that's kind of another news note that we have here that we shouldn't gloss over because I think this is the first time I've heard either Mike McDaniel or Chris Greer say something to that effect in a couple of years now. What are your thoughts on that, Taylor?
Yeah, I think it's something that I don't know if it's done out of, and it's coming from a McDaniel fan. Like I've said this ever since I joined the show with you guys. I don't know if it's done necessarily out of we actually do need to, or, my job's on the line. Chris Greer's job is on the line. Everybody wants the offensive line to be addressed. We have got to do it. Kind of thing. So I don't know necessarily they want to, if it were up to McDaniel, I don't know if he'd rather go cheap and try to go back with what we have with cheap offensive linemen and spend elsewhere. But considering the circumstances, there's no chance in hell that they end up doing that. They will have to spend premium money in free agency on this position.
Premium money / premium draft picks in order to fix this position. I mean, this is the equivalent. If they don't do it this offseason, this is the equivalent of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You need to address this guard position to fully unlock what this offense can do, because let's be real about it, Taylor. The guard position / center position, the interior of their offensive line is the one area of the Dolphins offense where they haven't completely revamped it and completely filled it with difference-making players. Wide receiver, they brought in Tyreek Hill, drafted Jalen Waddle. At tight end, they brought in Johnny Smith, who had the best receiving season for a Dolphins tight end in franchise history. You drafted Tua. You got your tackles in Terron Armstead and Austin Jackson. this interior of the offensive line is the one area that the Dolphins front office, the Dolphins coaching staff has yet to address with game-changing guys in order to fully unlock this offense. It's time they did that.
Yeah. And that's something that's always annoyed me about the interior offensive line, too, where it feels like it's always been patchwork, other than Armstead, which is not necessarily – it's not news considering, like, where Mike McDaniel came from in that Shanahan style. Shanahan loves that. Let's get somebody to anchor the offensive line, usually at the tackle, and everything else will fall into place. And McDaniel clearly tried to do that with Armstead over here. It has worked to varying degrees. I will give him that. But you look at the center position, as much as people have liked Connor Williams in the past, and I think he was a really good player, I'm not sure like he's a true center, you know, and it's been so long since we've had a true center, and having somebody like Aaron Brewer that still has a ways to go, don't get me wrong, but it's a huge step in the right direction, I think, on this offensive line. And when you got somebody like Patrick Paul with all the talent in the world to be a star left tackle in this league, it's about putting it together. So you have a vet like Terron Armstead, you know, where he can learn from him for a year, maybe 2 years if Armstead decides to come back. You're really looking good at 3 positions now because Austin Jackson is making decent money. It's not a crazy contract, and he's a decent starter at the position. So you're just, for real, you're looking at those 2 guard spots. If we can address those, man, in free agency and the draft, I'm very happy with that offseason.
Yeah.
Whatever else happens.
I'm right there with you, Taylor. There's a tweet from Joe Shad. Dolphins have a couple of linemen targeted in free agency, Mike McDaniel said. McDaniel says it's time for us to invest in the position in free agency and the draft. Mike, I could not agree with you more.
Hopefully he follows through on that. But
yes.
Let's go ahead and move on to our second official story here.
Yes, sir.
This is not offensive line related. This is wide receiver related. Mike McDaniel has officially revealed that wide receiver Tyreek Hill has underwent surgery on his wrist to repair ligament damage. Now, this isn't necessarily new information. Tyreek himself has talked about this injury in the past, but it was also said that Hill's wrist wasn't broken and he could start catching around the start of training camp. There was also speculation going around that Hill was instrumental in the firing of now former wide receiver coach Wes Welker. McDaniel pushed back on that and said, quote, "I could see why one would come to that conclusion. However, it wasn't all. I have a high regard for Wes Welker, and generally in my position, I have to do the hard thing, which is, in this case, is to look past the relationship. And for me, I take the job and the responsibility of being a head coach super serious, and I don't play with people's livelihoods. So for me, when it's very important that I outline specifically what I'm looking for on the front end with a coach, and in certain situations, those things can't be delivered upon. Who else is going to do the hard but right thing? That's my job. But it was motivated in things that were much beyond what happened with Tyreek at the end of the season," end quote. So, starting off with the obvious thing here with Tyreek's injury, I don't think that's necessarily big news here.
No.
If you've been following Dolphin news over the last few months, Tyreek himself, like I said he needed surgery, got surgery. I think the news there is he will be out for a bit.
I think it also makes it a lot harder to trade Tyreek Hill, Taylor, because, you know, coming back from the surgery, rehabbing from the surgery. Look, I know we've talked about, you know, life without Tyreek Hill. We've dabbled in that area, in that side of the pool on this show a few times. But I think this almost makes it all but certain that Tyreek Hill is coming back with the Miami Dolphins next season. I want to know what your thoughts are on that, Taylor.
I'm not sure if it was going to like go into training camp, him missing time. I could see it impacting any trade value. I'm not sure if it really necessarily impacts that at all. I think at this point, though, just reading the tea leaves, kind of just seems like everybody's ready to move on and run it back one more season, and then everybody just parts ways. Like the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill both just part ways after next season. That makes a lot of sense to me. As much as we talked about the issues that we've all had with Tyreek as a player this season, and hell, I gave him the season jockstrap.
Yeah.
So I think he had a really bad season.
He did. He earned that season jockstrap that you gave him, Taylor.
Yeah, but that being said, you're going into a new season. He got surgery on that wrist. All right, yeah, let's see where it goes. Let's see where it goes. I do still think we need some kind of vertical pass catcher, though, on this offense.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you. We need somebody bigger, more physical, a Muhsin Muhammad type of receiver. I'm going to stop short of saying Devontae Parker, because Devontae Parker looked like Tarzan, played like Jane, but
what about a Preston Williams type of receiver?
Yeah, Preston Williams, but with maybe a little more talent. I like guys like that. I think guys like that also are instrumental in what Tua wants to do. I think that helps an accurate quarterback like Tua, more so than a guy like Tyreek Hill would. Like, I think one of those big physical receivers are actually a better fit for what Tua does best than what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle do. That being said, they're both awesome wide receivers, and the Dolphins can certainly make this work. But I know that like I said, I know that there were fans out there that were hoping maybe the Dolphins move on from Tyreek Hill. Maybe they would trade him for a first-round pick. Steve, who lives next door to me, who used to do this show with us, just talking to him the other day, and he was saying, I want to see the Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill. I want to see them get as much as they can for him. He's actually been saying that for a couple of off seasons now. And I see where he's coming from. I just think this wrist injury, combined with the fact that he's kind of mending fences with a lot of the locker room. If I'm reading the tea leaves, I'm saying Tyreek Hill is going to be back. I just hope he's back before training camp so that he can actually do training camp with the team. It's not a good look for him to miss training camp in addition to everything that went on last season.
Yeah, and when it comes to getting a different player in here, it's not even like Tyreek's going to end up declining in talent. I don't think Tyreek's going to fall off a cliff, basically.
Yeah.
As a player. So even when I'm going like, hey, we got to get another player, vertical pass catcher in there, it's not like I'm saying that because Tyreek's going to fall off a cliff. It's just that, I'd like to be 1 year early there.
Yeah.
Than us needing another wide receiver. And now we have to rush to get it because Tyreek Hill's gone and we need somebody to take that wide receiver 2 role because now Waddle stepped up. So, yeah, that's where I would ideally like to see. I don't want to say even draft, like premium draft capital there.
Yeah.
Just like see it addressed somewhere in free agency or the draft, a tall wide receiver.
I like it. Now there's another aspect of this that I think we should address here, Taylor, and it's the firing of Wes Welker and how much of a role Tyreek Hill had in the firing of Wes Welker. What are your thoughts on that?
See, I don't know how much, if at all, Tyreek really played into it. It's just when it comes to Wes Welker, the wide receiver coach over the past 2 seasons, I think you can make the case for him being fired.
Yeah.
Just off of everybody aside from Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill's production. It's been very bad. Braxton Berrios, Cedric Wilson, Odell Beckham Jr., Grant DeBose, and so on and so forth.
Wayne Eskridge. I think he did a decent job with Malik Washington last season.
Yeah, but that's one hit.
Yeah.
Out of
True.
So many different and it's not necessarily as you look at Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, there's not a whole lot to develop there.
Yeah.
They're already superstar caliber players on their own right. So
in the same respect, you can't put the Odell Beckham Jr. fiasco on him either, though. Odell Beckham Jr. kind of was what he was.
But you can with Braxton Berrios and Cedric Wilson, the
Yeah.
lack of separation, all that stuff. You're not seeing development at that position where you really like to see something done. So after the last 2 seasons specifically, yeah, man, I have no issue with Wes Welker. Like, as it pains me to say, I'm a massive Wes Welker guy.
Yeah. Loved him when he was here. Hated him when he was on the Patriots, but loved him when he was here.
Loved him when he was on the Broncos.
Yeah, there you go.
The Patriots.
Yeah.
But you just can't argue with the on-field production and lack thereof. Like, it was time for a change there.
Yeah. And I think, Tyreek Hill may have wanted him gone, but I don't think he was. I think he was far from the only player in that building that thought what you thought, Taylor, that it was just time to kind of go your separate ways with the guy. And I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I just, for whatever reason, it just didn't work out here in Miami. And I think that's that.
Sometimes that's what it comes down to. It just doesn't work out. When we're talking about Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones, it's like, yeah, they played so bad. I just don't want them back. I'm rooting for them to succeed. Maybe it was just, hey, it didn't work in this scheme, and they can go somewhere else and be great. I just don't want it to be here because I don't trust it's going to be here.
I'm kind of rooting for him, but also, like, when I saw Noah Igbenogany go to Washington and kind of pop off over there, I mean,
it hurts a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It didn't exactly warm the cockles of my heart, man.
Yeah, that one hurts a little bit. Not like he's a top tier player at the position, but seeing what he was for the Dolphins.
Yeah. And
now he's starting to finally settle in, which is also, I don't want to say expected, but considering when he got drafted at about 20, 21 years old, he's still a really young player. So it kind of feels like he's finally settling into the NFL. And you're sitting there as a Dolphins fan, you're like, yeah, so we had to go through the growing pains of that as fans, and he's going to go be great with all these other teams, or be, I don't want to say great, but at least good.
Hey, you know what? He played some really good football for the Commanders this year. I'm not going to say he's a Pro Bowl caliber player just yet, but man, we just did a show last week about the Dolphins defense, and I did a segment on depth at cornerback and getting younger at the cornerback position. Noah Igbenogany is one of those guys that I wanted to see do well with the Dolphins. If for no other reason, then we need guys like him on our roster. And to see him leave Miami, go to Dallas, not do so well there, and then go to Washington, go to the Commanders, see him play in the NFC Championship game with them and see him play at a high level for them. Yeah, I'm happy for the kid. I'm happy for Noah Igbenogany because I know he always had the physical tools coming out of college. I know he was a raw prospect and he needed to be coached up a lot. But it still hurts a little bit. It still stings. Bringing that back to Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones, if they go on become solid players elsewhere, I would be happy for them personally, but it'll still sting a little bit as a Dolphins fan.
And going back to Wes Welker, that's, again, I'm rooting for his success elsewhere as well. It clearly was not working here, and it's also clearly an issue with the Dolphins team with depth. When it comes to, hey, Tua gets hurt, how's Skylar Thompson going to do? He's been in the system for years. Oh, my God, he looks horrible. And you could find that, go to the secondary position, again, go to the cornerbacks, Cam Smith and his development so far. Something is not working there. Channing Tindall, it's not working there. We got a bunch of undrafted free agent cornerbacks playing instead of our second-round pick corner.
Yeah.
So there needs to be something done about, like, the lack of development when it comes to depth players on the team.
Absolutely.
But since we're on the subject of the secondary, I just want to quickly get into our last subject.
Yes, sir.
So McDaniel addressed the status of safety Jevon Holland. He told reporters that Holland has, quote, earned the right to go out and test his market. He also didn't rule out a potential return, But all signs over the last few weeks seem to indicate that Miami is expecting Holland to be on another team in 2025. I think this goes into exactly what we were just talking about a lack of development. The last few seasons, Holland has been stagnant, I think is the best way you could put it.
That's the kindest way you can put it.
Yeah, I think it's the kindest way you could put it. And when it comes to like Miami seeming hesitant to even be like, yeah, we'll bring him back. I get it. You consider that we need to get at least 3 players at the safety position in 2025. And we're sitting there going, yeah, I don't know about Holland.
Yeah.
That tells you something.
Yeah. This might be one of those situations, Taylor, where it's probably best that both sides just, probably best for both sides that you just part ways. This relationship has run its course, I think. But more importantly, when you hear somebody like Mike McDaniel or Chris Greer say that player X has earned the right to go and test his market in free agency, it's very rare where you see that player come back to their original team. You very rarely see that, because if the Dolphins really wanted Holland here, they would have worked out an extension last season, or they would have franchised him and tried to work out a contract that way. They are letting Holland test his free agent market, knowing full well that what he's going to get out there is going to be money that we're not going to be willing to give him here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it goes back to the development thing to me, to where you're looking at Holland is where he's at right now. The past few seasons, the production necessarily hasn't been what you would expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there going, we can either pay this safety to be something we can project him to be, but do we trust the staff right now to develop him into that and get him there and put the pieces next to him to justify the price we're going to pay him at? I just don't see it, man.
Well, if you don't, that's another thing though, Taylor. If you don't trust the staff to develop these guys, you need to get a new staff.
Yeah.
And
which is why I think we see something like Wes Welker.
Yeah.
Now that might change. It might come out saying, no, Tyreek Hill's, he said some stuff and it did play into Wes Welker being fired. But
I'm sure it didn't help either way.
Yeah. So we don't know that. I can just look at what the roster was, what the team put out, and it makes sense for a lot of these changes that we've seen this offseason so far.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna be sad to see Holland go. I'm sad to see Wes Welker go, just as a personal fan of the player that he was. And I'll be sad if Terron Armstead decides to retire. But these are the kind of stories that happen at this stage of the offseason. And I think, for one, I'm happy we jumped on here and did this show, Taylor, just to kind of address everything. It's been good. Some of it's been eye-opening, especially regarding Terron Armstead. Do you have any final thoughts on any of this stuff?
I think we are going into an offseason where Miami's going to have to figure out who their cornerstones truly are.
Yeah.
Because you look at the 3 stories we talked about here today, Tyreek Hill, Terron Armstead, and Jevon Holland. Holland will most likely be on another team next season. Armstead is nearing the end of his career. And Tyreek Hill's future seems very short-lived with the Dolphins, whether he's traded this offseason or something happens in the next.
Yeah.
So this offseason to me, and what this really episode kind of is lined out for me, is like, we got to figure out what this team is going to be for the next 2-3 seasons. It can't be the Ferrari, speedy, let's try to get a touchdown every single play or nothing kind of system anymore. Like, we've got to figure out something that's gives you longevity.
Yeah. Agreed. And this is also going, and I think just this week alone, being as crazy as it was, strap in, ladies and gentlemen. Taylor, strap in. Josh, Anthony, if you're watching, if you watch later on, strap yourselves in, because this is going to be a long, bumpy, tumultuous offseason filled with lots of stories that are both going to titillate us and break our hearts. And this is not, and we're not that far into it. We haven't even gotten to free agency yet. So this is going to be fun. Taylor, do you have any other final thoughts for us tonight, man?
No, man. I'm excited to get into our show tomorrow, where we're going to be outlining our thoughts on the 2025 opponents for the Miami Dolphins.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that.
Laid back episode, too. This is one that, for all the research we've done over the last few weeks and all that, we can kind of just sit back and talk about the Dolphins, talk about how these teams match up to the Dolphins at this point in the offseason.
Yeah.
But also kind of just chill out and talk about some NFL football.
Yeah.
That's going to be pretty fun, too.
That's going to be nice. It's going to be nice because after this week's show, we're prepping for free agency, and then we're prepping for the draft. It's going to get intense up in here. So tomorrow night's show is something I'm looking forward to it as well, Taylor. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Just sit back, relax, talk some football, have a couple laughs. So look, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow night's show. Taylor and I will be back with you guys, along with our regular co-hosts, Anthony and Josh. If you guys like what you saw tonight, please like, subscribe, leave some comments. We'll be happy to hear them. I know that a lot of you out there didn't expect us to do a show tonight, but hopefully you'll tune into our channel and see.
Hopefully you were titillated, apparently, according to Keith.
Yeah, that's a nice word to use, right?
Sure. Nice is an adjective. Sure.
Yeah, but hopefully, you'll tune into our channel and you'll see, they did an extra show. Let's check that out, because periodically throughout the offseason, that's something that we're all going to be trying to do a little bit of extra shows throughout the week.
We're going to throw some
long
stuff
ones
at the wall, see what sticks. Star Wars has been in the news here lately, Keith. I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan.
Not so much, but yeah.
They were known for these past few years for throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks. We're going to try to go with that strategy. We're the only channel out there that is going to try to follow Star Wars' strategy of just randomly throwing stuff, hoping some kind of content will be great for us and for our viewers. So,
yes, in a galaxy far, far away, the Phins Forecast is going to be giving you more content than you guys can handle. So look, like I said, if you guys like what you saw tonight, please like, subscribe, and leave some comments for us. Taylor, thank you for joining me tonight. It's been a really fun show. I will see you again tomorrow night for our regular Phins Forecast show. Everybody have a lovely night.